first half of life often asks us to build, achieve, and establish ourselves in the world. The second half invites a different inquiry. What is worthy of my attention, my energy, and ultimately my one human life?
Today, we'll explore why that inquiry becomes increasingly more important in the second half of life. And we'll share a simple 2-minute practice to help connect the way you're living with what you value deeply.
This is the Latitude Adjustment Positive Psychology Podcast with Erica Schwarting Harrison and Randolph Rusty Harrison, where adventure, psychology, and intentional living help you navigate life's next chapter.
Imagine this. You're sitting on a weathered wooden bench overlooking a small harbor just before sunset. Fishing boats rest against the dock. Ropes pull gently with the tide. Water brushes against the hulls in a melodic rhythm. There's something about the way the light meets the horizon at this time of day that encourages a more intentional pace, a little less doing, and a little more noticing. There's nowhere you need to be, nothing demanding your attention, just space to be. And as you watch the boats rise and fall against the calm movement of the water, something begins to emerge from within. For much of life, our attention is directed forward. What needs to be done? What goal am I pursuing? What comes next? You pause. Then, for a moment, reflection takes place. Your thoughts drift towards roads already traveled, decisions you've made, opportunities you've embraced, the years that felt long while you were living them, and the ones that disappeared faster than you could ever have imagined. You think about the people who shaped your life, the things you worked hard to build, the experiences you cultivated, and somewhere within that reflection, you begin to wonder, what did all of it mean?
And perhaps even more prominent upon entry to this new chapter is, given the life I've lived, what matters most now? Because during the first half of life, meaning is often woven into the structure itself. Building a career, creating a family, establishing a place in the world, pursuing goals that once felt distant, and becoming the person you hoped to be. There's a path to follow and a sense of direction that comes with it. Eventually, however, many of those structures begin to change. Milestones are reached. Responsibilities evolve. Certain ambitions lose their hold. Time feels more finite, and meaning becomes less something we inherit and more something we consciously create. Life is no longer asking only, where are you headed? It also begins to ask, why?
For some folks, the response is motion. More goals to pursue, more projects to complete, more ways to stay focused on what's next. For others, it arrives as a feeling that's a little harder to describe. A sense of something deeper is asking for attention, that there may be more to discover beneath the life they've already built. Yet, beneath both experiences sits the same invitation to become more intentional about what makes a life feel meaningful. Not someday, now. Because meaning doesn't magically appear in the second half of life. It becomes something we make space for, something we create. Which brings us to the question at the heart of today's conversation. How do we create a life that feels meaningful when what matters most becomes the question?
From palm-fringed beaches to everyday decisions that shape your life. This is the Latitude Adjustment Positive Psychology Podcast, recognized with the Award of Distinction from the Communicator Awards, inducted into the Positive Change Podcast Awards Hall of Fame, and named Podcast of the Year by the American Writing Awards. Hosted by Erica and Rusty Harrison, co-creators of A Guide for Aging Heroes, this story-driven show blends adventure with applied psychology, plus one simple challenge to help you build a life of intention in the second half of life. So, spread out your beach towel and grab a cold drink, because sometimes that's all the stuff you need.
All right, Rusty, what are we exploring today? And why does this question tend to get louder as life moves forward?
As life unfolds, the second half often brings an unexpected invitation to look beneath the surface of what has been built. People have built careers. They've raised families and met responsibilities.
Yeah.
They've reached goals they spent years pursuing.
Sure.
Yet, even with much of that in place, new questions emerge.
Life may look successful from the outside. However, accomplishment and meaning are not always the same thing. The structure is there, but a deeper sense of purpose or meaning can feel a little harder to locate.
This can show up in surprisingly ordinary ways. The calendar stays full, but fulfillment feels inconsistent. Achievements arrive, yet the sense of satisfaction they bring feels surprisingly short-lived. Greater freedom becomes available, while a clear sense of direction seems a bit harder to identify.
Because the external markers of success don't automatically create that internal sense of meaning. And when those two things become disconnected, people often find it difficult to name what feels absent.
Part of the reason this becomes more noticeable is that life begins creating more space. Not necessarily more time, more space. Roles transition from one thing to another. Responsibilities evolve, family dynamics reconfigure, careers launch, mature, and eventually come to an end. And within that newly available space, questions that once lived quietly in the background begin moving closer to the center.
And when a strong sense of meaning is present, that space can feel full of possibility. And when meaning feels less defined, the very same space, that can create restlessness or uncertainty.
So what happens? Sometimes people respond by filling every available moment. More activity, more commitments, more productivity.
More.
Yeah, anything that postpones the need to wrestle with the deeper question.
The challenge is that productivity and meaning, they're not interchangeable. A life can be exceptionally full and still feel disconnected from what matters most. At the same time, a simpler life can feel deeply rich, purposeful, and alive.
So why does this question seem to get louder as life moves forward? To answer that, we need to understand what may be happening beneath the surface.
What many people experience in the second half of life is not simply a personal struggle. It may actually be part of a very normal developmental process.
Let's sit here for a moment and watch the tide come in while we do a segment 1 recap.
All right. The topic we're exploring, accomplishment and meaning are not always the same thing. As life creates more space, questions about purpose, fulfillment, and what matters most often become more visible. How do we create a life that feels meaningful and aligned with what matters most now?
In segment 2, we'll explore why questions of meaning often become more central in the second half of life and what psychology can teach us about that transition. So what's actually happening? Why do questions about meaning, purpose, and fulfillment seem to become more important as we move through adulthood?
Rusty, psychologists have been studying that question for decades. And while different theories approach it from different angles, many arrive at a similar conclusion. The second half of life presents a different developmental task than the first. For much of early adulthood, our attention is directed toward building a life, establishing ourselves, creating stability, meeting those responsibilities, pursuing goals. As we mature, another task begins to emerge. It's making sense of the life we've built. One of the clearest ways, I think, to understand this comes from Jungian psychology. Carl Jung described the second half of life as the afternoon of life. I like that. His observation was that the first half of life is often focused on building what he called the persona, the identity that helps us function effectively in the world, the roles we occupy, the responsibilities we carry, the expectations we learn to navigate.
The version of ourselves that helps us participate in society.
Exactly. But Jung believed the second half of life invites a different process. It's what he called individuation, the lifelong process of becoming more fully ourselves, not simply the person we learned to be in order to function well, but the person that exists beyond the roles, responsibilities, and adaptations that helped us navigate the world.
So the question gradually changes from how do I succeed to who am I becoming?
Right.
And many of Jungian thinkers describe this as a movement towards greater internal congruence, a growing desire for our values, choices, relationships, and daily lives to feel increasingly aligned.
Yeah.
And that naturally connects to an insight that emerges as our perspective deepens. People start to look back.
It does. Developmental psychologist Erik Erikson described a stage of adulthood called integrity versus despair. During this stage, people often engage in what researchers call a life review. They begin asking, did my life have meaning? Did it matter? Can I make peace with the life I've lived? And according to Erikson, when people are able to make sense of their experiences, including the imperfect, unfinished, and difficult parts, they often develop a sense of integrity, an ability to say, this was my life and it mattered.
So meaning isn't only something we pursue, it's something we interpret.
Right. How we understand our story becomes part of the story itself.
Oh. And then there's Viktor Frankl, one of my absolute favorites.
Viktor.
Frankl's work may be one of the most influential perspectives on meaning that's ever been developed.
Yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, his central idea was very straightforward. Human beings are deeply motivated by meaning, not simply happiness or success, but meaning, which helps explain why someone can achieve everything they ever wanted and still feel that something important is missing.
Wow. Frankl believed meaning is often found in three places.
Three places.
Yeah. So through what we create or contribute,
Okay.
through our experiences and relationships,
Right.
and through the attitude we bring to circumstances we cannot change.
I love those.
Yeah.
That's kind of perfect. And this includes experiences we never would have chosen for ourselves. By midlife, life has usually introduced its share of loss, disappointment, uncertainty, illness, change, and transition. Frankl's insight was that meaning is not found by avoiding those experiences. It is often discovered through the way we understand and respond to them.
I think that that's so important. Let's reiterate it. Give it to him one more time.
Yeah. Meaning often comes from dealing with difficult life experiences.
Yeah, I love that.
Those difficult experiences are really the things that shape you. So in the analogy of changing iron into steel, what do you have to do? You have to heat it up. It has to go through enormous amounts of heat, and then it changes into something better.
Wow.
For us humans, those difficult experiences are the heat that make us better.
That's true. And I love that piece about the way we understand and the way we respond.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, another theory adds an interesting layer to this conversation as well. It's called gerotranscendence.
Gerotranscendence.
Yeah, I think I had that in a spelling bee. So researchers observed that many people naturally begin viewing themselves within a larger context as they age. Attention broadens beyond personal achievement and individual success. So people often become more interested in things like connection, perspective, and the legacy they leave behind.
Yeah, I think that's called wisdom. And there are plenty of folks who reach advanced age without ever developing it. But for folks that do, life becomes less focused on what they're accumulating
Right.
and more focused on what they're contributing.
Yeah, a wider lens begins to emerge from it.
So let's bring this down to everyday life. How do people actually build meaning?
Ooh, well, here's something you'll love. Research.
Do you love research?
We know that. Research points to several common patterns. Here we go. The first is making sense of experience. The ability to look back and ask, what did this teach me? How did it shape me? What became possible because I lived through it?
Yeah, you're not rewriting the story, but you're understanding it more deeply.
Exactly.
The second contribution, investing in the well-being of others.
Ooh.
It may be through mentoring, teaching, supporting, creating something that extends beyond ourselves. And the third connection is connection to people.
Ooh, good stuff.
Yeah, to your community,
Mm-hmm.
your connection to spiritual traditions.
Yeah.
Or something larger than our individual lives.
I think this helps explain why meaning often grows when our attention expands beyond ourselves. And the research is remarkably consistent here. People who experience a strong sense of meaning tend to cope more effectively with adversity. They experience greater psychological well-being and report higher levels of life satisfaction across adulthood.
Okay, so what do we do with all of this?
Taken together, these theories point toward a similar conclusion. Meaning is not something we discover once and keep forever. It evolves as we do. The question that emerges in the second half of life often invites us to revisit who we are, how we understand our story, and what we want to contribute moving forward.
Which means the search for meaning is not a detour from life.
No.
It is a very integral part of the work of living it.
Let's pour a cold drink and do a segment 2 recap.
All right. The second half of life shifts from external achievement to internal meaning making. Jung says a movement from persona to your true self, individuation. Erickson says making sense of your life through integrity. Gerotranscendence means a broader, more connected perspective. And Frankl tells us that meaning is the central human motivation. And meaning is built through reappraisal, storytelling, contribution, and connection to something larger.
In segment 3, we'll show you how to build meaning in everyday life with a simple, practical way to start.
All right, so if meaning isn't something you suddenly figure out,
Damn, like it doesn't just poof and all of a sudden we're enlightened?
wouldn't that be nice?
Yeah, I'll take 2.
So how do we actually create it? Here's the mindset shift. Meaning is not something you find, it's something you build.
Hammer and nails, people.
There's a tendency to think that meaning will become clear one day if we just wait long enough. Life's going to arrive fully formed, clear, certain, and obvious.
Ooh, like a lightning bolt moment?
Sure. But for most people, that's not how it works. Meaning isn't a discovery, it's a construction project.
See, hence the hammer and nails, right?
It's built very slowly through what you choose to pay attention to
Right.
and how you choose to participate in your own life.
And that's actually good news because it means meaning isn't reserved for a specific kind of life. You don't have to change everything. You don't have to move across the world. You don't have to reinvent yourself completely. Most of the time, meaning grows through those ordinary moments. It's the conversations you keep showing up for, relationships you continue investing in, creative projects that keep calling your name, the way you care for someone, the way you contribute, the values you practice repeatedly, even when no one's watching.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest mistakes that people can make is allowing external sources to define meaning for you.
Yes.
And believe me, our culture tells us what meaning should be.
It sure gives it a try.
Make more money, buy more stuff. Psychologists sometimes describe meaning as emerging through engagement, not just thinking about life, but participating in it. And when people report feeling a strong sense of meaning, it often isn't because every question has been answered. It's because they're connected to something that feels worthwhile, something larger than immediate comfort, larger than achievement, larger than themselves.
Which is why meaning and purpose, they're not exactly the same thing. Purpose is often about direction, and meaning is often about connection.
I like that.
Yeah. You can have a clear sense of purpose and still feel disconnected. And you can experience deep meaning in moments that have no grand purpose attached to them at all. You know, a quiet dinner with people you love, a conversation that changes how you see something, helping someone through a difficult period of life, watching a child become who they are. Meaning often arrives through relationships, through contribution, through presence.
And here's where this becomes practical. If you're listening and wondering what your life means, you may be asking a question that's too large to answer all at once. A better question might be, what feels worth showing up for right now?
Ooh, I'm breaking out the red lipstick and I'm going to write that on our bathroom mirror.
Creepy, but effective.
Because meaning rarely appears at the end of analysis. It tends to emerge through engagement. You know, one choice, one conversation, one act of care, an expression of curiosity, one step towards something that feels alive.
Which leads us to a perfect pause and noticed opportunity.
Ooh, I'm going to hit the pause button.
This week, make paying attention to moments that leave you feeling more connected an intentional practice.
Beautiful.
Not ones that make you happier per se, but they leave you feeling more connected, more present, more engaged, more yourself.
Sure. Maybe it's teaching, creating, being of service to others. Maybe it's learning or spending time with people who bring out parts of you that feel genuine and fully alive. Just notice, because those moments are often cues, not to a single answer, but to a life that feels increasingly meaningful and purpose-driven.
And the beautiful part is that meaning doesn't require certainty.
It does not.
It only requires participation.
And sometimes the life you're searching for begins taking shape the moment you stop waiting for meaning to arrive and start helping to create it.
All right, it's that time again.
Yes. What is it, Rusty? What time is it?
It's time for this week's challenge.
Thought you were going to say it was like cocktail 30. All right, let's do a challenge instead. Once a day this week, we want you to take 2 minutes and ask yourself 3 simple questions. Number 1, what moment today felt meaningful? Number 2, what was it about that moment that made it meaningful? And number 3, how might I create more space for experiences like that? That's it.
No pressure to figure out your purpose. No need to map out the rest of your life. Just pay attention.
Because meaning is often easier to recognize in moments than in grand plans. It's the conversations, acts of kindness, creative projects, time spent with someone you love, a moment of contribution, connection, growth.
And when you begin noticing those moments, patterns often emerge. You start seeing what really matters, what energizes you, what feels aligned with your values. And over time, those observations become part of something larger.
a life that reflects what matters most. One choice, one moment, one day at a time.
All right, so let's kick the sand off our feet and do a segment 3 recap.
All right. The mindset shift. Meaning isn't something you find, it's something you build. Real life. Meaning grows through connection, contribution, growth, and engagement. The challenge? Notice what leaves you feeling more connected, more present, and more alive, and then follow those clues.
In segment 4, we'll bring this voyage to its final destination. As we bring this conversation into harbor, let's return to where we began. At some point in life, many people stop asking, what should I do next? And they start asking, what is it all for? Early in life, those first questions often make perfect sense. What career should I pursue? What goals should I chase? What responsibilities should I take on? What kind of life am I trying to build? Those questions help us create direction. They help us establish ourselves in the world, and they help us build our lives.
Over time, another question often begins surfacing beneath them. The first questions, they still matter, but they are no longer the only questions. Many people reach a point where they become less interested in simply building a life and more interested in understanding their relationship to the life they've built. That focus widens, attention turns toward meaning, toward alignment, toward the desire to spend their time, energy, and attention in ways that feel deeply worthwhile.
And if that question has been finding its way into your thoughts lately,
it's been finding its way into mine.
Perhaps what you're experiencing is not uncertainty, but awareness.
Ooh, that feels good.
Awareness that the life you've built is now asking something more of you. Not more achievement, but a deeper alignment with what feels meaningful, purposeful, and alive.
Yeah, because meaning is not a reward waiting somewhere in the distance. It's not hidden beyond the next promotion, achievement, move, or milestone. What we've explored today is something both simpler and more profound. It's that meaning is built. It develops through what we choose to care about, what we choose to nurture, what we choose to contribute to, those relationships we invest in, the values we embody, and the experiences that draw us more fully into life.
And perhaps that's where these two questions finally come together. What should I do next?
Mm-hmm.
And what is all this actually for?
Yeah.
Because once we begin exploring meaning, the second question begins to inform the first. Meaning becomes less about finding a final answer and more about discovering a sense of direction.
In many ways, meaning functions more like a compass than a destination. It helps us recognize which opportunities deepen our lives and which ones simply fill our calendars. It helps us notice what leaves us feeling connected, engaged, fully present, and alive in our own experience.
Clarity is usually less of a revelation and more of a gradual unfolding.
Right.
A conversation that stays with you, a relationship that deepens you, a project that calls something forward, an experience that changes the way you see yourself or the world around you.
Over time, those moments, they begin connecting. You start noticing themes, patterns, threads that run through your life. And looking back, you realize meaning was never waiting somewhere else. It was being woven into your life all along.
So if you've been feeling that persistent sense that something more is asking for your attention, don't rush past it. Spend some time with it. Listen to it. Get curious about it. There may be wisdom in the question itself.
Mm-hmm. A meaningful life is rarely created through some magical reinvention. More often, it's shaped through small acts of attention, small acts of intention, small choices that bring daily life into that closer alignment with what matters most.
You don't need to see the entire horizon. You don't need every answer, and you don't need certainty before taking that next step.
No, you just need the willingness to remain engaged, to keep paying attention and keep moving toward what feels meaningful.
And the fact that you're asking the question, the fact that you're paying attention, may be the clearest sign of all that you're already underway.
All right, friends, let's do an episode recap. You ready?
Let's do it.
In segment 1, we named the experience. The question of meaning often becomes more visible in the second half of life.
In segment 2, we explored why life structures change, time becomes more tangible, and many people begin re-examining the story they've been living.
In segment 3, we offered a different perspective. Meaning is not something you find, it's something you build through connection, contribution, growth, and engagement.
And in segment 4, we brought the pieces together. Meaning is less like a destination and more like a compass, helping guide the choices that shape our lives.
If this episode hit your heart, if it spoke to you, share it. Text a friend, tag us, and go follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Aging Heroes. You can also find our full tribe at www.agingheroes.com.
Next time on the Latitude Adjustment, we're talking about legacy beyond achievement.
What it means to move beyond titles, accomplishments, and external success, and start thinking about the kind of impact you're leaving behind.
Because eventually, the question changes again.
From what does my life mean to me?
To what will my life mean to others?
Until then, keep adjusting your latitude.